Welcome to the mystery of the salvation of Gentiles, part 9b, with the acronym MOTSOG, subtitled The Queen of Heaven, Tapanese. The Queen of Heaven, Tapanese. I do not know, believers, whether Zimbabweans have short memory or what. In 2022 and in 2023, I said doing elections in Zimbabwe is a waste of time under the current prevailing political conditions. Stop doing elections. Elections cost Zimbabwe a minimum of $500 million. The 280 that is published by the state is an under-declaration. It's an understatement. Every time elections are done, after elections are done, the government buys new vehicles for the incoming members of parliament and for the entire executive and for the entire judiciary, the top leaders in the judiciary. That is a cost that is done after elections. That is not covered under the $500 million that I talked about. The $500 million involves the money that ZANU-PF uses to buy cars with which they do campaigns. They dish out cars to chiefs, masabuku, my chief, my headmen. Those cars are not purchased from the ZANU-PF budget.
Okay.
They are purchased from the state budget. So the cost of elections includes the cost of the T-shirts you see ZANU-PF supporters wearing. That is not from the party, it's from state coffers. So I have it on good authority that elections cost Zimbabwe $500 million. We need around $25 million to do a proper renovation of Paranyatwa Hospital. Between $25 to $30 million. Proper upgrade and proper renovations. Not what they've just done. This is just a publicity stunt. So divide 500 million by 30 million because it will cost $50 million to build a hospital from scratch. Which means from the election funds alone, every 5 years, Zimbabwe is able to build 10 new state-of-the-art, well-equipped hospitals. And when the elections are done, those who participated in the elections as opposition parties, they cry foul that the election was rigged. They were not allowed to campaign freely. The electoral process is marred with systemic and structural irregularities. The electoral playing field is not level. It is tilted in the favor of the ruling party. This complaint has been happening or coming since 2005. Count how many elections we have done so far. And each time, those who participate complain that the election was a farce. What comes out of elections in Zimbabwe are hostilities between the peoples of the nation. Those who support this party fight with those who support that party. What comes out of elections are graves. What comes out of elections are disabled and handicapped people who are injured through political violence. That is what we could call the fruits of Zimbabwean elections. After elections are done, those who join government after winning the so-called elections, they go there with what is called a political winter. Everybody says, I invested a lot of money to win this election, so it's my time to gain what I lost. So for the first 2 years after every election in Africa, politicians will be getting back the money which they invested to win elections. There's no development. And in Zimbabwe, people are in election mode for 5 years. In other countries, soon after the election is ended and the winner is declared, people go out of election mode. They go into nation building. They start building roads. improving the infrastructure, social policies, economic policies, security policies to grow the nation, industrialize, build schools, create a conducive environment for business to thrive. In Africa, we don't. In Zimbabwe, the state interferes seriously with business, even though they say we are open for business, but in practice, they are hostile to business. They scare investors with inconsistent laws. Nations cannot be sustained by inconsistent statutory instruments. Go and find out which other African country in 2025 issued as many statutory instruments as the Zimbabwean government. A nation that is governed by statutory instruments is a nation demonstrating executive overreach, where the president is both the president and the cabinet.
Yes.
He interferes with operations of the government by issuing out executive orders. Executive orders, statutory instruments, they are a demonstration of a nation that is unstable. Nations are governed through proper substantive legislations that are properly drafted, consulting the public, because we are a participatory democracy. After thorough and robust engagement with the people that are governed, they then debate the bills in parliament, and then they are signed into law by the president. It's a process that cannot take less than a year. In normal countries, to introduce a new act, it should not cost us less than a year because of the consultations required as provided for in the supreme document, the Constitution. On the contrary, executive orders are unilateral declarations by the president. He doesn't consult anyone. He uses presidential powers to override the provisions of the law, that it must be a minister who tables a bill in parliament, and then through the legislative legal procedures, laws are promulgated. What have we done? What have we come out with so far? Nothing. What was exactly the fruit of the 2023 election, if you are honest? Chakanyatsobuda pana 2023 chakabatsira nyika chi. Who benefited from the 2023 election? More chaos, more violence, more graves, harder economic conditions. After wasting too much money on a needless election, wasted resources that are not properly managed, the state is broke after elections. How do they refund government operations? They come back to the poor masses. They introduce senseless taxes. Tax this, tax that. Now they want to tax generators and solar panels. They want to tax goats that are kept in the villages by peasant farmers who are very poor. Zimbabwe is the highest taxed country in SADC. And yet there is no development. Why are they doing that? They want to raise money. I told you our government is broke. So my question is, this constitutional amendment, Bill number 3, is saying elections interfere with projects and development. Let's extend the presidential and parliamentary terms with 2 more years to 2030. Who has seen it so far that this constitutional amendment, Bill number 3, is trying to implement what I said in 2022 and 2023? That elections are useless in Zimbabwe. That's what they're doing now. And it's not makazviona here kuti zvakataurwa naChiwenga kuti dai tambomira zvema-elections ndo zviri kutaurwa nenyika yese. This is my first time commenting officially on the constitutional amendment bill number 3. I was quiet until today, officially at least. The reason why I was quiet is that this matter is water under the bridge.
Yes.
Those who are frantic and restless and anxious about it today, they are not looking at the current situation obtaining on the ground, and they have a shorter memory. I cannot deal with their amnesia. But my point is, foregoing elections to save lives and money, using that money to develop the country, I suggested it before the 2023 election. And you castigated me, criticized me, and you said, why am I trying to do that? We want to do elections and elect a new leader, which is again a demonstration of a nagging amnesia and a serious problem of oversimplifying the Zimbabwean political situation. Elections cannot change issues to do with who is governing Zimbabwe. Elections have failed for the past 25 years. Tsvangirai won elections 2 times, and they could not hand over power to Tsvangirai. The South African former president Thabo Mbeki knows about this. The former Botswana president Seretse Khama knows about this. The former vice president of Zimbabwe of Malawi, Joyce Banda, knows about this. The former president of Nigeria, Obasanjo, knows about this. The late president of Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, knew about it. There's nothing new. These African presidents, when they hear that there's an election in Zimbabwe, they demand for another coffee and say, give us refill the cup of coffee. It's a foregone conclusion. They will retain the status quo. What I'm saying now does not mean I support the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. Neither am I saying it is good for us to have very, very ineffective election cycles that do not deliver the agenda of elections. That's not it. I'm not saying I support it, let them do it. The way they are doing it is wrong. But the idea to do it is not wrong. Those who are doing it are not the right people to do it. The way they are doing it is not the right way to do it, at least in accordance with the law. The law says they must do 2 referendums. They don't want to do 2 referendums. They are saying legal garbage to manipulate the brains of the already unwilling people to learn what the document, the Constitution actually says. How to amend the Constitution, it's there. It's not difficult to have a copy of the Constitution. You need just data to download it from the government repositories. So, as a church now, we do not put the idea of having a new president ahead of more important issues. We are a church that knows the law of God. Let's talk about elections in the allegory of a marriage. Elections is a system where a man marries a new wife. So if every time you want to marry a new wife, we have to kill 3 men who wanted to marry the same woman. Is the marriage necessary to cost the lives of 3 men? That's the point. But it's my right to marry any woman that I want to marry if I can afford to marry. It's your right. But when your right is costing lives, lives are more important than your marriage. So our focus is not just the desperate desire for Zimbabweans to have a new president who does not come from ZANU-PF. No. In as much as that may be a very important conversation to have, our concern as the church is that every election that has happened in Zimbabwe since 1980 has costed somebody's life. And even if one person dies, the Zimbabwean situation has become an altar. Zimbabwe elections are an altar where the Zimbabwean sons and daughters die and their blood is spilled. That is an abomination. So every time we do elections, we lose human life. So elections are more important in Zimbabwe than the lives of the people that are to be governed after elections. That is a very worrisome paradox. To anybody who knows God, it's unacceptable. It doesn't matter who wins the elections. If somebody dies simply because he attended a political rally, that election is cursed by God. It doesn't matter who killed the person. It doesn't matter how many people died. one life is far too many when it comes to the principles of God. This is why we tell you Zimbabwe is cursed. I love my country, but according to the provisions of this book, our nation is cursed. And this is one of the epitomic symptoms of a curse. Anything that needs blood to be spilled for it to be successful does not come from God. Anything chinoda kuti munhu afe asina chaatadza kuti chiitike chinhu ichocho chakatukwa naMwari. Ndosaka pamuchato chaipo pakadonha munhu akafa vari pamuchato vanhu vanotoenda kunobvunza kuti tatadza chii kuna Mwari. Nekuti pamuchato panofanirwa kufarwa. Panofanirwa kutanga mhuri ichabara upenyu hwevana vachazvarwa imomo. Hapafanirwi kuitika rufu pamuchato. Zvine tsananguro kuti munhu adonha sei pamuchato akafa. Nekuti aigona kuzofira kumba apedza muchato. Saka every time we do elections, after elections, some people are admitted into hospitals. Some people will be burying their relatives because of elections. That alone is a sign of a case. As I speak now, there is no proper database in Zimbabwe, even by NGOs, of how many people are missing in Zimbabwe because of politics. We don't know the actual number of missing people. We don't know. And the nonchalance and the apathy of us as citizens to sit down and say we can't have comfort in our homes until we know after every election how many did we lose this time, how many have been injured. Ndavanani vakasvodogorwa maoko, ndavanani vamapofu, ndavanani vakapiswa musana neacid. Nasi election yapera, mangwana president anenge achitwa inauguration. Tisati taita inauguration ya president munyowani. Ngatange taverengana kuti tichakakwana here. Pa next apo makakwana here, mwana akadzoka here kumba zvaakaenda kurally mwedzi wakapera. Parainire kuseruku makakwana here. Kwazvimba makakwana here. Kuchipinge vana vakakwana here. Kubudiriro vana vakakwana here. Kwamuriwa vana vakakwana here. Kumtawa-tawa vanhu vakakwana here. Kugwanda vanhu vakakwana here. Ma-elections apera. Tonyora kuti vakashota vangani. Tochibvunzana mubvunzo wechipiri futi kuti vane maronda vangani. Vane maronda anoda kuma-elections muri vangani. Muri kurapwa kupi. Makakuvadzwa nani. Kana tisati tadaro isu se-society hatina kusiyana nevacho vari kuuraya. Zimbabweans are as cold-hearted as the people that they accuse of cruelty and ruthlessness. We don't care. That again is a sign of a cursed people. I and a few voices are the only people that are concerned about it. Mawina election makorokoto. Asi makauraya vangani this time. Mawina election makorokoto. Asi makashkora makumbo evangani this time. Mawina election makorokoto. Tane nere rangani nekuda kwenyu. Tane chirikadzi ngani nekuda kwenyu. Kana zvisati zvakosha izvozvo hatisi vanhu pamberi paMwari. Hatisi vanhu pamberi paMwari. So I want to say it's a very sad conversation to have with a wrongly politicized population. The people of Zimbabwe have been wrongly politicized. They think that true elections is when their preferred candidate has won the election. That is political indoctrination. A proper, efficient, and unbiased election is where the electoral controlling body conducts the election in a fair manner so that the best candidate wins. Even if that best candidate is not your choice. Muzimbabwe vanhu vanoti kana weda asiri awina election yacho haina kuitwa zvakanaka. Ndo zvavanodzidziswa nevatungamiriri vavo. Kureva kuti hatisati tava mature enough kuziva kuti sezvakangoitawo kubhora. Bhora rinogona kutotambwa rikapera richinzi ratambwa zvakanaka asi timu yako yarohwa 4-0. Panenge pachinzi watambwa zvakanaka panenge pachingorehwa bedzi kuti refuri arifura zvakanaka. Zvekuti awina ndiani harisi basa rarefu iroro. Uye imi muchida henyu kuti Man U iwine, asi munogonawo kugutsikana negame iroro even marowa kuti refuri anga ari fair. Tarohwa zvedu, tarwadziwa, asi bhora ratambwa zvakanaka. So the right president for Zimbabwe is not your preferred choice. The right president is the one who wins a fair election, whoever it is. It doesn't have to be your father or your boyfriend. If you don't understand that, you are actually a dangerous citizen. Because you are going to demonstrate against an election outcome, not because the process was flawed, but because your candidate lost the election. You become a dangerous citizen if you participate in election processes with a wrong political consciousness. I support this candidate, but he lost. Even though he lost, I am happy that the election was conducted properly. But remember, that is also if it was conducted properly.
Yes.
We haven't had a proper election in Zimbabwe since 1980. In the 1980 elections, Joshua Nkomo was stopped from campaigning in Mashonaland by ZANU. They blocked him from campaigning that he may canvass for votes. Saka zvokurambidzwa kuita rally, ivo vachiita rally, imi muchirambidzwa nemapurisa. Hazvisi zvinyowani. Ngoma akazviitwa. Pamunozoti wina ningi paipai. Zivai kuti uyu paanga achida kumhanya mamakambata bhurukwa kudai. Ndikamasiya wenyu ndokumborumba kuya kumberi mozoregedza uyu. Mozonoenda kumberi kumoti tawina. So our position as the church is that the current economic and social and political situation in Zimbabwe is not conducive for a free and fair election. We do not have an electoral management body that is competent to run a proper and credible election. ZEC is not impartial. It is incapable, not because of political bias only, but structurally speaking.
Yes.
The people that run ZEC are ZANU-PF stalwarts. So in a match between Manchester United and Liverpool, if the referee is a Liverpool fan, the game is biased before it started. You understand?
Yes.
Most of the senior election officials are former military officers who were once seen on TV declaring that they are ZANU-PF until they die. How can they supervise an impartial election? For the sake of human lives, it is wise for Zimbabwe to mature until it is able to run a credible election. Anybody who says, let's go to the ballot, notwithstanding that we are going to cry foul after the election, those are not patriots. They are greedy people who benefit from this election cycle financially. Pane zvavanowana kana ma-elections akaitika zvinouya muhomwe dzavo. Isu tiri kuti kusvikira taakugona kuti election inoitwa topedza election pasina afa, ngatimbomirai ma-elections. Isu tiri kuti kusvikira taakuti tinogona kuita election yekuti kana election yapera hapana anoenda kunorapwa achinzi akarohwa nekuda kwepolitical violence, ngatimbomirai election.
Yes.
Isu tiri kuti ngatimbomirai ma-elections tishandise mari iyoyo tivake zvipatara. Nekuti vanhu vedu vari kufa nekuti zvipatara zvedu zvakafa, hazvisi kushanda. Upenyu hwevanhu hwakakosha kudarika kuita a democratic election. Kana zvisinga make sense zvandiri kutaura izvi, something lacks in your wisdom. Between having your preferred candidate winning an election and saving human lives. If human lives are not as important as having your preferred candidate declared the winner in the election, you are not fit to be engaging us in this conversation.
Yes.
My last issue is that throughout the history of political science, people who took over government through a coup have never been removed through a democratic election. The current government we have in Zimbabwe, they took over government using the army in 2017. Anybody who thinks that elections can remove Mnangagwa anofanirwa kuti amuke anyengetere kuna Mwari. The government that took over governance through the military in a coup can never be removed through a civil election. It has never happened. And this kuti ngatiite imwe coup tiri kungotaura political reality.
Yes.
Kuti kana maakuenda kunovhota muna 2028 ndokunge zvikabudirira zvekuvhota muna 2028. Muzvizive futi kuti zvakaitika muna 2023 ndozvichaitika muna 2028. Kusvikira matozosvika patakasvika isu vamwe kuti dai tambomira zvema-elections zvacho. Nekuti vana vemboka vasvinire musi mumwe chete.
Yes.
Yezve zvari kuti ma-elections anokonzeresa violence, ngatimbomirai timboextenda ne2 years. Hachisi chinhu chavakazofunga manje apa vanhu vari kutaura zvekuextenda term of office. Takazvitaura isusu kutanga kuna 2017 tichiti dai tambomira zvema-elections izvi. Takazvitaura isu vana Chiwenga. Go back into our library. We have been suggesting, I am not saying let those who are in government continue governing us until we are organized enough to run a safe, violent-free election. No, I'm not saying that. I do not want to provide a prognosis to this situation yet. I do have a suggestion of what we can do, but I'm not going to suggest now. Saka, so zvatinotaura isu moramba tozotaurwa nevanhu vasina Mwari mozvibvuma kuti zvine musoro. Kufunga kwenyu imi muruvengo rwaminarwo towards the preacher rwakabva kuna Mwari here? Is it God? The same things we said in 2022 are the ones you are justifying now. They were suggested by a preacher, a man of God. You rejected them. Today you are the one who is in the forefront of defending, extending the term of office of the current president and the parliament. That's a question you might want to answer another day. So that's something we must consider as a very important matter in our nation. My elections anongoburitsa mari dzawo matatu muZimbabwe. Anopa authenticity and legitimacy to a fraud system, a fraudulent system. They get legitimacy from these irregular elections. That's the first outcome. The second outcome are graves and injuries of the common people. The third are debt burdens that come to weigh heavily to choke our people. Elections are a burden that Zimbabweans have to pay for through over-taxation, which is now the current government's method of financing government operations. Iwewe ndio unozobhadhara mari yemotikari yakapuwa machief panenge pachiitwa ma-elections. Hausati wakuzviziva. Paya panonzi tax yakwira paya. Hurumende ingeda kurikavha mari yayakaruza nguva yema-elections. Iwe ndio unozotorerwa mari iyoyo kuti zvikwereti izvo zvibhadharwe. Saka every time panoitwa election tinokwidzirwa mitero. Saka ma-elections anotounza zvikwereti kwatiri isusu. Elections bring financial burdens that are heavy on the common man. Elections bring deaths and injuries, and they bring a legitimacy to an illegitimate system of governance. Tikasiya munhu ari pachigaro tokanzura ma-election, hauzooni here kuti tinombozorora kutaura.
Yes.
Kuti hakuna ma-elections ingotongai itai zvamunoda. Kusvikira taane vanhu vanogona kuzviorganiza or demand accountability with one voice. That will require true patriots, and that will require brave men and women. We have not men nowadays. We now have a society full of hungry, greedy people who have become sellouts. Izvezvizvi chimwe chinobuda ma-elections kupfuma kwembavha. Ma-elections anopfumisa mbavha.
Yes.
Mbavha dzinopfuma zvisingaite pakaitwa election.
Yes.
After every election, the common people become poorer. The thieves get richer. Yeah. It's a useless process. It's not necessary. This is a reality that I'm giving to you. It may be tough, but that is the truth. Look back at what has been happening for the past 20 years. I have just described it in my own words so that you know kuti kuvaraidza nguva kuteya nzou neriva. Kuita election muZimbabwe kuda kuteya nzou neriva. Azvibatsire. Kune vakatenda vakanoti ndipei zvangu mari zvekuramba ndichikampena ndaona kuti azvibatsire. Ingondipai mari ndinodya naadzimai vangu. Munhu akatotora mari akaenda. Amene kuti munofunga kuti ndiyo nzira yacho yekuvaka nyika iyoyo. Kuti tingosarenda totengesa the national cause. Tongofa. Kana kwenyu kumhuri kusina ataurayiwa nepolitics dzemuZimbabwe, makorokoto, makaitirwa tsitsi mufunge kumusha kwenyu. Isu marinda tinawo evanhu vakaurayirwa politics. Tine mariro atakasvika. Tasvika pamariro. Zvikadzi pano pane masiyayo. Pari kurambidzwa kuti mutore mapictures echitunha chiri mubhokisi. Hapasi kuitwa body viewing. Uri kungobuditsa coffin moenda straight kunoviga munhu. Zvanzi anongopikisa zvataurwa nevakuru. Anotsakatika futi. Vauraya munhu vanouya futi kunhamo wokupai mutemo kuti munoviga munhu when you say. That's how callous and cold-hearted they are. Kana zvisati zvaitika kwenyu makorokoto tinoti makakomborerwa. Asi rimwe zuva zvichakusvikira iwo. Izvo zvatataura izvo. I know what could change the situation in our country. And when I say the situation, I'm not talking the changing of a president. I'm talking about the changing of the government policy so that we may have a peaceful country and a safe country and an accountable government. Yes. What we have in Zimbabwe is not a state. We have an empire governed by emperors. A president answers to the people. When people answer to the president, he is not a president. He is an emperor. And that is our reality. All right. Kutuone kuti vanhu vedu hadzina kukwana. Enda unoona kuti vakadzi vakuru nevari makuru vanomhanya kuenda kuTrabablas kuitwa tkumbwa nemwana wembavha kuti ndaviga mari endai munoitsvaga muiwane kuzara kudai vachitsvaga $500. Dai nyika yedu yanga ine vanhu vakakwana. Baba vemwana uyoyo vangadai vakatoissue apology kuti mwana muregerere akafarisa ndichamutsiura. Preying on the vulnerabilities of the population because you have money is not only irresponsible and insensitive, it is disrespectful to the electorate who vote those who are in power into office. Mwana ari kuita zvaari kuita uya dai nyika yedu ine vanhu chaivo, vanhu vangadai vakagumburwa nazvo, vangadai vasina kumhanya, vanhu vaifanirwa kutogumbuka kuti vanhu vari kutambura nekuda kwevari kutungamira nyika. Iwo akuita seunoisa munyu paronda. Taking away the dignity of the people because of poverty is not just reckless and irresponsible. It is a violation of the human right to dignity. People's dignity should not be a toy in the hands of the rich because they are poor. Anyone who has money should not abuse people because of their poverty. Our government should have stopped that. That is what a proper leadership does.
Yes.
But mwana ye atova celebrity mufunge. Vanhu vakutokumbira kutorwa maselfie naye. Ndio imesaini kuti hatisisina vanhu. Nyika isisina vanhu. Zvekuti ukatarisa zvaita vanhu vedu chaizvo unotonyatsoona kuti ukanyatsozvitarisisa mushe unoona kuti vanhu vari muZimbabwe zvavaita mupfungwa dzavo havakodzere kuwana a compassionate president.
Yes.
The psyche of the citizen has been damaged. That our people will resonate and tolerate an abusive government to such an extent that a government that is responsible, a president who is responsible and answering to the people, he will not be liked by the current society we have. Tane vanhu vajaira kuabuswa. Zvoti pakaya president asinga abuse achatonetseka president yeye kutonga zvakanaka. kuti vanhu vacho vajaira kuabuswa. Saka kukauya asinga abuse vachatomuti akapusa haagone kutonga. Tata akajaira kurohwa musana nezviwopu. Uyo asingatirovi uyo haaite uyu anobohwa. Kana usingazvizive zvandiri kutaura izvi, imbobvunza munhu akamboroora mukadzi aimborohwa nemurume wakambotanga kumuroora. Kumutsiura nemashoko haazvigone. Ngokuti handidi kuti uite zvakati. Anoteerera nembama. Ndando zvaanga akajaira. Unogona kujairira kuabuswa kusvikira wakutokumbira kuti vanhu vakuabuse nokuti waane nhomba yekuabuswa. Tibvunziro yakambama baba mwana. Mukabvuma gore musina mubvunziro. Ini kwanda ndakambororwa kuya ndaidhindi vaini. Friday gega ndairohwa usiku. Saka ukaroora mukadzi anga akajaira kurohwa ukamuti handidi zvakati ateerere. Anenge achiti kana waa serious uchandiridza mbama. Tando zvandakajaira. Ndozvaita maZimbabweans izvozvo. Vajaira kuabuswa. Zvekuti kupiwa nyika yakadaro kupiwa mutoro kana uri a good president, you have a lot of work to do. You have to start by transforming and repairing the psyche of the citizen. Citizen anoona mumwe munhu achiondomorerwa imba nekanzuru iye achitora pikicha kudai. Citizen iye oposta paFacebook pake kuti zvakaoma mufunge akanyarara. Ajaira kuabuswa. Citizen anoona mapurisa achitora zvinhu zvechirikadzi ne70 years pamusika nekuti zvanzi vari kutengesera pasingabvumidzwe kwakuenda nazvo kudai iye otora pikicha. Hasi citizen iye. We have two crises now, a crisis of leadership and a crisis of population. Our population has been damaged that they are going to become a problem themselves. When we have a proper leadership that wants to remedy the damages, they are going to become stumbling blocks. Their psyche is damaged. Their consciousness is damaged. Their sense of Ubuntu is damaged.
Yes.
Their sense of statesmanship is damaged. Their sense of patriotism is damaged. It's a problem. I gave an example some few years ago that 2 farm workers fought in a biao. And when they were arrested, the police officer asked, "Why were you fighting?" And they said, "Well, we were arguing about whose employer is more money than whose employer." So I told him, my boss, Murungu wangu ane mari kudarika Murungu wako. They were working for 2 white farmers. So they argued that his white farmer boss is richer than that one's white farmer boss. That was the argument that they fought about. Vashandi vaviri vepapurazi vakarovana. Vachiroverana nyaya yekuti Murungu wangu ane mari kudarika Murungu wako. Ndoko vatozosungwa. Ungandiudza kuti vanhu vanhu kwavo vari pasi. Anogonzi Murungu wako sei iwe uri boy iko. Iwe uri boy remurungu. Iwe wakufamba chinyepo kuti Murungu wangu. Tambiriswa upfu hweKenya nematemba ndope yenyiwe. Pachipo chekuti mubatane muronge kuti todhinda varungu ava sei vadzokere kumusha kwavo. Imi muri kudhindana kuti Murungu wangu ane mari kudarika Murungu wako. Vanhu vakadaro vakafa havabatsirike. Musati mava papresident anogadzira maroads, misoro yevanhu ndoyakuda kutanga yagadzirwa. Kuti tivake nyika tichada kutanga tavaka vanhu futi vari munyika macho. Kuti vazive kuti haurasire mapepa muwindo yekombi. Takura mapepa unoisa mubini. Vanhu vedu havachigone izvozvo. So this is what I wanted to say, believers. That is what Chiwenga has to say. I have a prophecy that there is going to be a controversy when a country is accused of assassinating the president of another country. There's going to be a controversy, a conflict between 2 nations, where the other nation is going to be accused of orchestrating or participating in a plot to assassinate another president or another leader of another country. Put this prophecy down, it will come to pass.